Each character had its own signature talent and piece of the plot puzzle. Edgar used tools. Sabin performed Street Fighter-style button commands called blitzes. Celes wielded a runic blade that absorbed magical attacks. Cyan counted upwards through different sword skills. Gao imitated monsters. Setzer pulled a lever on an attack-initiating slot machine, and so on. At least one segment of the game was devoted to revealing fragments from each of the characters' backstories, and some of them were more thought-provoking and heartbreaking than the events that made up the main mission. The only returners that were primed solely for battle, aside from cameos that would drop in and out of your party, were 3 optional recruits near the end of the game: the Moogle Mog, the Yeti Umaro, and the mysterious mimic Gogo, who also made a shrouded appearance in Final Fantasy V. Cid stayed out of the party in 6, merely helping you when he could. As a scientist in the Empire's Magitech facility, he had nothing to do with airships for the first time. All of these leading players were almost overshadowed by one of the gaudiest villains the series has ever feared. Kefka, Emperor Gestal's ambassador, was a nasty clown that demanded a great deal of attention. He was among the first faces to appear on the screen, and the first character to utter a spoken line of dialogue, even if it was just a trademark cackle. Kefka was not a supernatural being, or the collected sum of all evil, or a mind-warping god from another planet. He was a man, albeit a twisted soul, who sought supreme power above all else. He wasn't a puppet to a higher power, or a victim seeking revenge. He was just an awful human being, and a wonderful bad guy. But creating the characters wasn't enough. They acted and animated in ways the series had never attempted before. The fourth wall of the battle screen was obliterated, with interactive scenes often playing themselves out from the combat view. Instances where multiple characters were animated at once were now commonplace, instead of being reserved for towns or major plot moments. The best example of this, and the scene that stole the show, quite literally in 6, was an opera the player had to actively participate in by remembering their lines and blocking. This story within a story within a story shows how elegantly each event played out in 6, and why most of its moments are eternally unforgettable. With Cid working for the Empire, the High Roller Setzer allowed you to borrow the only airship in the world. When that craft crashed and burned, he dug up another that belonged to a lost friend. You could be taxied by boat on occasion, but there were no canoes, snowmobiles, or submarines in 6, just the 2 flying machines. But your point of view while controlling them was drastically different. Instead of being stuck to one altitude and forced to travel in 4 directions, you had 360 degrees of movement, along with the ability to climb and dive through the air. A brand new mini-map in the lower right kept you from getting lost, which was easy to do with the extreme speeds of the new crafts. This new beveled angle was also applied to chocobo runs, which showed your character on bird back from a lowered perspective. The Second War of the Magi led both sides to the Sealed Gate, the border between their world and the land the Espers had originally escaped to. Coming in contact with their kind revealed that Terra was neither an Esper nor a human, but a product of both. Proof that the 2 races could coexist, she rallied the returners until they were forced to stop Kefka from disturbing 3 statues that created magic itself ages ago. But they were too late. Forced to flee the unnatural floating island, they boarded their airship just in time to see it torn in 2. The entire army was scattered, their fates unknown, and the planet was changed forever. Waking up in the shoes of Celes, on the shores of a deserted island, players had to explore this brand new planet of scorched earth, reassemble their ranks soldier by soldier, and reach a looming tower for the game's final confrontation. At SIGGRAPH in 1995, Locke, Terra, and Shadow made a command performance in a 3D minigame created by Square, using prototype Nintendo 64 workstations from Silicon Graphics. The technical demonstration was completely playable, with patterns made by a computer mouse initiating attack commands. It served to teach Square's artists how to render sprites in 3D, and show the eager public what they had in store for the first 3D Final Fantasy. FF6 was also ported to the PlayStation in 1999 and the Game Boy Advance in early 2007. Final Fantasy VI was an extraordinary way for the series to bow out of the second dimension. Its artfully crafted storyline and meaningful characters made the final chapter in the Nintendo saga feel as if all the other adventures had been building up to its creation. Its 20-minute ending is one of the longest on the platform, and as the last page in its book was turned, it was clear that 6 would be one tough fantasy to follow. From the way it capitalized on the full potential of the Super Nintendo to the acclaim it received, Final Fantasy VI's visual flair primed the series for the generation to follow, and it would never have to hide its true Roman numerals again. Join us next week when we explore the Final Fantasy game that needs no introduction. It was the first use of full-motion video, a spectacular shift into the third dimension, and one of the most intense role-playing obsessions of all time.